Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wyndham-Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. Today is Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. We are in the Wyndham High School auditorium, and it is 6:30 on the nose. May I have a roll call, please?
Kate Briggs. Here. Jessica Bridges.
Here.
Jenny Butler.
Here.
Jody Carroll.
Here.
Caitlin Downs. Here. Marge Gavoni.
Here.
Shar Jewell.
Here.
Mike McClellan.
Here.
Christina Small.
Here.
Lillian Nugent.
Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance Thank you. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none. Before we get into public input, I just thought I'd provide the guidelines again. If I can get to them. Okay. Am I okay? Okay. The purpose of public comment is to provide an opportunity to address the board on matters specific to our schools and educational matters. All other comments beyond that scope are not appropriate for this meeting. The board will listen carefully to all members of the public, but will not respond. Speakers are expected to follow rules of common decency and decorum. Interrupting any speaker or board member during commentary is not allowed. We ask that all speakers address the board and not the audience. Each person will be permitted to address the board one time during public comment with a maximum speaking time of 3 minutes. Sharing time with another speaker is not permitted. I will alert the speaker at the 3-minute mark. If speakers do not complete their comments within the allotted 3 minutes, they may submit a written statement to the board. Written statements are also accepted from those who do not wish to speak publicly. Requests for information or concerns that require further research will be noted and referred to the superintendent for further action, if necessary. Discussion of matters involving individual students is not permitted during the public comment due to the privacy, confidentiality, and due process rights of any RSU 14 student. Comments regarding any individual staff, either by name or specifically identifiable by position, are also not permitted. If the comment continues, the mic will be turned off. Complaints about any district employee should follow the process outlined in policy KEB. Public complaints about school personnel are not permitted during public comment. We ask that adults share their first and last name and the town they reside in. Students are only required to share their first name. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We look forward to hearing from you. Would anyone like to speak? I don't see any action. Okay, then I will close public input and we will move into item 6, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you. I have a couple things to share tonight. First of all, next Thursday night, so a week from tomorrow, here in the Wyndham High School auditorium, there'll be a straw poll vote on the concept design for the new RSU 14 middle school. And it's an opportunity for the public to come, ask questions, learn about the concept, and I'll share this in my presentation tonight, just doing a little background work and prep for this. Concept design's been worked on for the last 5 years, so this has been quite a process even to get us to tonight. So we have an opportunity to share next Thursday night. It's an important night for the district because through that straw poll vote, Maine DOE will make a determination of whether or not the project's moving forward, and also unlocks a considerable amount of state funding to support this building. So an important night. We'll send out a letter and reminder first of the week. In addition, there will be another ad running in the Eagle this Friday, and also a feature story on the straw poll running Friday as well in the Eagle. Happy to announce that Rob Hamilton has been picked as the 3rd SRO for RSU 14, whose duties will cover the elementary schools within the district. I had a chance to meet with Rob and the chief on Monday morning and just have a chance to talk a little bit about duties and our vision for that position. What was also fun for me is that Rob graduated in my very first class here at Wyndham High School as principal. So it was great to see one of our former grads stepping up. Has a wonderful background of teaching and also teaching young students. He and his wife live here in Wyndham, actually not far from here, and I think he's going to be an absolutely outstanding addition to our SRO crew. I also just want to mention tonight that Wyndham Police and Cumberland County Emergency Service Unit are doing a training across the street over at Wyndham Middle School. They'll be doing that tonight from 5 to 9, and then also next Wednesday night we'll send out another reminder as well. It's nice that our law enforcement is so involved in training and making sure that we have the most up-to-date training that's here, and so they'll be spending their night tonight working through that. Also, just want to remind the public that Gary spent some time this week updating all the different school calendars, making sure that all the open houses were on there, as well as all the district dates are on there. So it'd be great for everyone to take a peek at that. New staff orientation, believe it or not, is next Wednesday. We'll have a chance to meet and greet the new staff and go through some of the required trainings. Our teaching staff that are under the Sebago East Shore Educators Association contract come in next Thursday, Friday. And then on Monday the 28th, everyone will be here first thing in the morning for our district kickoff, which is actually one of my favorite days of the year, as we get a chance to see everybody. This Friday, we have a parent letter going out, which is an introduction to Parent Square. I've already downloaded my app. I will learn on Friday how to do all the messaging on that. I've been promised that as we make our transition from Blackboard over to Parent Square. And that's what I have for tonight.
Perfect. Thank you. Next, we'll move to a board roundtable. Anyone have anything they'd like to share this evening?
I just wanted to remind people, because later on tonight we'll be voting on the school handbooks. I just wanted to remind parents, along with the students, that it is a good suggestion that they take the time when they get these to, are they getting them in paper, or is it all online now, Chris?
It's a little bit of both, depending upon age level. And also, some of our youngest learners aren't necessarily reading through the handbook because they're still learning how to read. And so part of that will also be explained to them in a very kid-friendly way. High school does spend some time. There's electronic, and have a chance to go ahead and over-review those in their advisories. One thing that's helpful about the electronic version is that as things change throughout the year, our policies get updated, it allows us to keep our handbooks as fresh as possible. Whereas in the past years, where most of them were printed, they really were only up to date once.
Yeah. So it is the student's handbook, but I do encourage parents to please read the book that's associated with the school that your child goes to. There's a lot of good information in there and stuff you should know.
Anybody else? I see no hands. Okay. We're going to move into committee reports, which I believe will be equally uneventful because I don't think anybody's met. Is any? No. Okay. Item 8 done. May I have a motion for appointments, please?
I move to approve the following appointments for the 2023-2024 school year. Adam Manzo, math teacher, Wyndham Middle School, BA1, $43,839.92. Brenda Guzzi, multilingual teacher, Wyndham Primary School, BA2, $46,124.87.
Second.
Thank you. Any board discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item 10 is the presentation for the middle school. Mr. Howell will gear up here in a minute. I'm going to ask the board members if you'd like to sit down in the audience so that you don't have to crane your neck.
So before I get started, also I want to recognize Scott McLean, who's here. Scott has been the chair of our building committee working on the middle school. Scott and I have not rehearsed this presentation, so we're going to rehearse it right now. Scott, when we get up to talking about the local options, love for you to get up and just talk a little bit about the committee work and some of the committee recommendations from that. So there's our practice right there. There's our practice. I'm just simply the mouthpiece tonight for this presentation. The concept design that you're going to be looking at tonight, I know board members, you've seen much of this. Michelle and Greg have been knee-deep in it. Greg, as he's been getting up to speed in the district, and Michelle over the last year helping to plan. This work started back in 2018 when the state finally notified us to say, I say finally, when they notified us to say project would be moving forward. And one of the first questions that the board asked me to take a look at that time was, what can we do between now and when this project gets started? What can we do to actually start doing some work? And one of the recommendations from PDT, who was our architect at the time, was start working on your visioning and start working on what is it that you want your building to do, what do you want it to serve. And so we had a chance to work with Dr. Frank Locker and work through a whole visioning process for actually over 3 years that then led to this. So the concept you're going to see tonight, I'm the mouthpiece, but this was developed by teachers, community members, students who've had a chance to participate in focus groups, board members that have been on the construction committee, our construction committee members, and also some great input from some very talented engineers and people knowledgeable in construction like Chris Streifel, who's been a great asset to this project and being able to kind of help us move forward. I think the other thing that is now starting to make this project feel really real is that kids in grades 1 through 4, so the kids entering Manchester, will be in this school if we stay on time and stay on our timeline, and the kids who are now in grades 1 to 4 at RES will be in this school. And so it's not that far away, and as we've had a chance to share last week, things are really starting to accelerate. You've all seen this by now, and as we've kind of gone along this line of the state process, we are now at step 12. In between step 12 and 13, this is where a whole bunch of approvals are going to take place. So starting tonight, board, you're going to be asked to consider the recommendation of the construction committee. Next Tuesday, I have an opportunity to meet with the commissioner, and the commissioner will be determining whether or not the project moves forward. Next Friday, I have a chance to meet with the state construction board, which is the state school board. We also, next Thursday, have a chance to meet with the community for the straw poll. So a lot of things that are going to happen in between steps 12 and 13. And 13 is a big one for us because that's a November referendum. And that's where the community is going to come and say, yes, we want you to move forward with this, or no, we want you to go back and look at a different design. And the construction committee has a recommendation that they're going to put forward to you as far as what they think should be on that referendum. So timeline here, referendum in November. We've been working with Stantec. Many of you know Dwight Anderson, who is our civil engineer. We are taking a little bit of a risk based on how much time that it's now taking DEP to run permits, that we're actually going to seek to all the permit paperwork prior to referendum. That permit is good for 5 to 7 years. It takes anywhere from 6 to 9 months to actually have your permit returned from DEP once you apply. So if you think about it, if we waited to referendum and then had to wait for documents to be developed to go to DEP, we wouldn't actually get a permit till probably September, October, November of next year. And breaking ground in Maine in November is not a good place to be. So trying to, as much as we can, go to a June, so an early site bid, and then look to then start some building construction about a year or so after groundbreaking. And part of this timeline, as much work and as detailed as the documents you see, everything has to go to construction diagrams, true blueprints, all the engineering diagrams, all of that work has to be done. Right now, these have all been estimates. They've been design possibilities, but that's what will happen during this design document phase and then construction. And then if all goes well, August of 27, just not that far away. Again, students occupying are right now going to be sitting in classrooms in 27. Again, you're all familiar with this process. We've been through educational planning. In fact, last August, this board meeting, if you remember that Drew and Peter came and presented the educational specifications. It was the August meeting, so a year ago. So that was done, new versus renovation study. We've looked at consolidating schools, the two middle schools together, which was over 2 years ago that process happened. 2.5 years ago was a district study. We've done some site design. We've done some concept design. So a lot of things to move this forward, all prepping us to get to that November referendum. So the straw poll is really simple. It's a non-binding vote. You went through this in June, where a community comes and says this is a good site. We'll ask the community next Thursday night, is this a good concept design that the committee for construction is actually recommending forward? If people say, yes, it's good, it continues to move forward. If people say, you know what, at this point, we don't like the concept, at that point, I think the November referendum is off the table, and we'd be looking at a June referendum and going back and redesigning. So it's important that everyone who comes and has an opportunity to learn more about the concept, that they truly, truly understand what it is they're voting for, what it is they're voting to accept, and then what the committee is putting forward. So next Thursday night, we'll be talking about the project, talking about the solution, talking about the process. I will be sharing, which I'll share with you all tonight, because this is what everyone wants to know. What's the actual cost going to be? How will it impact my pocketbook as a taxpayer? Also talk about something that we don't always think about, which is buildings. What is their long-term cost? What's it going to cost to heat? What's it going to cost for the electricity? How much is it going to take for the outside and the facade? What is it going to be for the roofing materials? We'll talk about the benefits, and then allow people to ask questions, and then run through our straw poll. Since we're combining two middle schools together, Wyndham Middle School and Jordan Small, there's some common things that are with each building that really put us on the list to even get a school. So Wyndham Middle School has some structural issues with its roof. Jordan Small does not. Actually, Jordan Small has a new roof that was put on several years ago, but does have energy issues. Not the most efficient envelope, not the most efficient building. Jordan Small was built to be an elementary school that was turned into a middle school. Wyndham Middle School was built to be a junior high that was turned into middle school. Jordan Small has big classrooms. Wyndham Middle School, and if you've ever been there, in the upstairs, the classrooms are only 600 square feet. State standard's 900. Put 24 middle school bodies in a building that's 1/3 undersized. It really makes for a tight space. And it's also important, and this is part of the community conversation we'll have, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We will not see the state of Maine come back for another 20 or so years to the district. So how much funding can we leverage during that time? What are some opportunities of things that we can do to support not only this building, but are there some programmatic changes we can make? We want to improve outcomes. We know we'll have some community assets that come out of this. All of our gyms and all of our buildings are occupied on any given Saturday and Sunday. All of our athletic fields are occupied on any given Saturday and Sunday when there's not a school team that's on them. So additional community assets, and then energy cost, and then both Wyndham and Raymond, and this has been since we became a district in 2009, program equity. Are we offering the same things for kids in Raymond that we're offering for kids in Wyndham? And are there opportunities that kids in Raymond have that Wyndham kids don't have? And so finally being able to bring everybody under the same roof definitely starts to increase those opportunities. The middle school design itself is a fantastic design. It comes out of the 3-year visioning work that was done with Dr. Locker. And through that visioning work, teams, so taking a school that's built for 1,200, breaking it down into teams of 75 to 100 where kids truly feel like they belong, giving common planning time for staff so that staff have common students in a common area, so they really get to know their kids. Also in this model, special, so in the case of art, foreign language, and STEM are close by to the team, so allows those to be integrated in, and really looking to bring some continuity of instruction. The way that Wyndham Middle School was set up was to be departmentalized, so you had science in one area, math in another. It was turned into a team model, but the classrooms don't necessarily match the vision of instruction or how instruction is done. Jordan Small was built as an elementary school. One benefit of that is a bathroom in every classroom. That's a huge benefit for most of the building, or at least the elementary wing, not the newer part, but makes it very, very difficult to get teams together because really there's one good common area on one end of the building, one good common on the area on the other, but in between makes it difficult to pull kids together. I'm going to just skip through some of the location pieces and just go to a front view. So the concept at this point, and again, this is just a conceptual drawing of what the building might possibly look like with a traditional brick red. I know it shows a little bit orange here. And then this gray block is the same gray block that if you're walking up here through the stairways, it's basically a concrete block that's been cut and polished. Very durable exterior. This is a kind of a metal product and allows the district to really have very little long-term upkeep and maintenance required on the outside of the buildings. Just also get an idea of scale. Each of these windows are my height. Those are 6-foot windows. And so lots of natural light. The building's oriented so that this is facing due south coming into the entry, due north this way. I've learned a lot from Lance. East-west light is the absolute worst light for a classroom because it kind of goes in and goes sideways and you get those long shadows. Makes it very, very difficult in order to be able to keep a constant light. So definitely some pieces to this. The committee met, Scott, when was that, last Thursday night? Met last Thursday night and has now considering making this building, which is something the state would pay for, solar ready. And so looking at the option of a power purchase agreement, which would be another company provides solar panels that would be placed on our roof, and it becomes a partnership much like the solar consortium that we're in right now, possibly getting this to a net zero building for electricity. And this is a building that is air source heat pumps, going to be heavily electricity based, and so in order to be able to generate a lot of that will be definitely beneficial to the building, and also long-term economically is going to help us out a lot as far as costs. And for board members, something that boards like are constant costs. So you get a constant, predictable electricity cost that's going to be happening on your building. It's interesting having a chance to sit through all the different kids sessions because our students at both Jordan Small and at Wyndham Middle, and I don't know if Michelle, you got a chance to sit in on a couple of those. Couple things that they really wanted in this building. One, they wanted a front that looks like a front, so you know where you're going. They want to be able to come in off the buses and know exactly. They also wanted that front to kind of have a recognizable area for gathering and a place that they could then wait for rides or wait for the buses. That was an important thing for the kids. The other thing that was really interesting that was important for the kids are just some of the natural landscape pieces. And they wanted to have a place where they feel like that they own it, that they feel connected, and that once they get in that building, they know where they're going. And so a lot of work done on the concept for that. Another thing just to point out from a safety security standpoint, this is the one entrance of the building during school time. And you'll see in the design, this is also the area where the SRO is located, where the main office is located. All visitors will come here, all deliveries will come here. Students will come in in the morning through a double set of doors, and those doors are locked throughout the day. Another part which is included in the local option is glass that's called SchoolBoard glass, which you actually can't break through. And through our work with the DOE, they will pay for SchoolBoard for this section here. Part of what Lance has included in that local only option is adding SchoolBoard to these ground level places so that you couldn't have somebody who could intrude at ground level through one of these windows. Just another added element piece. The other thing going back to, and we'll talk about it, local option, significant amount of energy modeling has been done on this building to make sure it's as efficient as possible. The committee talked about this and made the recommendation the other night to, instead of having double glazed windows, go to triple glazed, which will give you a far better energy return. It's not actually, the payback is between 15 and 20 years on those, and then also some additional insulation, which I think was a 10 or 12-year payback on energy use in the building. And so I know board members, you've had a chance to see this, looking at the back of the building. You have, this would be the auditorium space, the gym space, and then over here would be the music rooms. This would be your entrance for night athletic activities going into the gym. So if you were heading to a basketball game, there's a separate entrance where you'd be able to come in here and go in directly without entering that main part. Also working on an outdoor seating area for the cafeteria. I know this is something that Drew did quite a bit last year. Michelle did as well, as an option for kids to be able to go and eat outside, and creating an area off the cafeteria for that to happen. So again, just getting you some views of the concept. And just getting an idea of scale. This building is 260,000 square feet. Windham High School is 220,000 square feet. So it's an acre larger in floor space than Windham High School, which is more so based on some of the larger classrooms and the number of classrooms, where this actually has more educational space in it than Windham High School does up in the classroom wing. So being one of the major differences. So coming in at this community level, kids are all upstairs. So again, let's see if we get this laser pointer to work. Here's your front entrance, the center spine, which is your cafeteria, brings you back to the gym, brings you back to the auditorium. At this first level here, actually the next slide captures it. You have your school resource officer and your nurse right at the front. Nurse has a separate exit. Specialty education areas, your JMG classroom, your health classrooms, gifted and talented are over on that side. We also have some special education rooms. Your administrators are here. And then down here in the corner, some specialty education areas. One, which is a build lab, being able to have a space large enough for projects and things. And then also a space for our STEM teachers to be able to prep things. And if you think about, if you've been to the Windham Middle School STEM rooms, got some big equipment that will go down to the new school. Jordan Small, we did a STEM room up there, much, much smaller. It's a converted classroom. So being able to then have a space where our 4 STEM teachers will be able to prep projects, prep materials, and also have kids come down. All right, I'm going to move up to the levels. So this is a 3-story building. Next level up, which is going to be probably 5th and 6th grade on the same level. So 5th and 6th grade, and then if you move up one more, 7th and 8th grade up on the topmost level. And 2nd floor and 3rd floor are mirrors of each other, where you have 3 possible teams. So typically we're running between 250 to 300 students per grade level in the RSU. So students be split over the 3 teams, and there are your on-team specials. And again, so this might be your 5th grade, this might be your 6th grade, and then moving up. This just gives you a little idea of kind of coming in where you have classroom suites for the team. So a spot for math, science, social studies, and English, and sharing a team common area, replicated over here, and then in the middle, a grade level commons where a couple teams could actually come together and meet. So if you wanted to do either a large team meeting or a couple teams coming together, a space large enough here outside of art, world languages, and STEM. Another thing to point out to this building, which actually makes it super, super efficient, notice that there's a stairwell here, and there's actually one right here in the middle. This building has 6 stairwells, and if I'm on this team right here, on the far right, and this is not a great laser pointer, but if I'm over here on the far right and I'm going to my team, I come in the building, go to my staircase, I come out of the staircase, I'm in my team. I don't ever walk through somebody else's team. I don't have a reason to. All of my functions can stay, my classes can stay on my team unless I'm going over to STEM or world languages or art, or if I'm going to head downstairs to lunch. So really taking what's going to be a big building and making it more manageable so that it's for 4 teachers getting to know 75 to 100 students really, really well. And in the case of adding on the applied arts folks, making sure that they're integrating, allowing for projects on the team, and both middle schools and even Manchester School have been heavily involved in project-based learning, trying to make things as hands-on for students as possible and as integrated in subject areas. So again, I know board members that you've seen this. So a couple pieces, and they're just kind of going in on the team here. There's that team common area. This is large enough for the team to actually get together and hold a team meeting, or for teachers in this classroom or this classroom, whatever, to go in and actually send their students out to work. Every one of the classrooms have good sight lines, so if you're sending students out to be able to see what they're actually doing out there. The other thing that's important to point out on this, if you notice in all the classrooms, there is a blue area that's designated. In the case of a safety situation, students can be in that blue area and actually not be seen. So every classroom has a safety area, which in the event that there was an intruder in the building, doors could be locked, and even within the windows in the classroom, you can't be seen in those spaces. And there have been some discussions of actually delineating that on the floor with a different tile so that you're well aware of where you're at. The other thing that teachers have been really liked about this concept is that every team has its own bathrooms. So send a kid to use the restroom, they don't need to go across the building to go catch up with somebody. Restrooms are right there. There's one designated staff one and then 3 student ones for every single team. They're all single bathrooms going across, and really takes care of some middle school issues. And because often we have students that are going to the bathroom to visit with each other. Now it's just you go to the restroom, there's a single restroom that's there, that's visible all the way through the team area. And again, these are just some sample mock-ups of classrooms. We'll go to some more detail when, after referendum, when things start to go to design documents. Looking through the rest of the building, and these are some of the fun parts. There's this wide open space as you come in, which is your cafeteria. Also, much like Wyndham High School here, and I remember as principal, a lot of kids would actually just like to sit on the stairs and have a place to eat. There's this wooden staircase, it's called an Agora stair, which is large enough to sit on and have lunch. That becomes part of the cafeteria as well. At times when it's not being used as the cafeteria, it becomes a presentation space. So if you wanted to bring a grade level down and do presentations down at the bottom of the stairs here, it becomes a little natural amphitheater. So it serves for state function as cafeteria space, but it doubles for programming use as additional places where kids can go ahead and present things that they're working on. Also notice here that the gym is a little bit larger than state standards. And I'll get Scott to talk about that in a second, but additional size bleachers. It also does include a walking track that goes around it. And then moving on just through, again, here's your front door, your central spine, those Agora stairs, which leads you, the top of the stairs leads you to the top of the auditorium, which also leads you to that walking track. And then if you go beyond the stairs, come down the back hallway, here's all your music rooms. In addition, we heard a lot in our process from community theater folks and also from individuals who've been heavily involved with drama here and just some of the shortcomings within this building. They've served in the Wyndham High School building that they've served to kind of correct some of those. CJ has also been involved working with the architect on what are some of the spaces that we need in order to support that for our students. And for those of you who may or may not be aware, middle school drama is a huge thing. Wizard of Oz, I think we had close to 80 to 90 students that were involved in that production up at Jordan Small. trying to remember the Disney, Descendants, that's right. I was going to call them the Incorrigibles, the Descendants, which was done, and I think we had close to 70 students involved in that one as well. And then also, if you've noticed signs around town for the number of community theater events that are going on this summer. I think Sound of Music is running this weekend. But large thing, huge amount of interest, and as we brought the building committee together, that was actually one of the number one things they wanted to see in this building was that particular piece. It's also important to note out, because one of the questions we're always going to get is about school safety. That's that front entrance, double entrance, where kids can come in the morning and head in and go to their classes. However, these become locked as soon as school opens. Everyone coming else through the day needs to come in through the secure entrance. The school resource officer's here, and if you notice, he's right here, or she in the future, in the central spine with great sight lines. Again, our administrative assistants that are here, sight lines out towards cafeteria, sight lines out towards the entrance, and then sight lines over here towards the main entrance, and trying to make sure that one of the biggest safety things is just being able to see and being aware of what's going on. There's actually a typo on this slide. So full-size community gym, oh, I take that back, it's looking at the back one. DOE has agreed to, in addition to funding this gym, and when I say fund this gym, if you run basically this line, that's the portion that they're paying for. In addition, they're paying for a full aux gym. So there'll be 2 physical education spaces that are involved with that, with bleachers for 200. This actually has bleachers for 1,200, so that you could do a full school assembly and have everybody in the same room, which is a valuable culture item. Just giving an aside view of what an auditorium might look like with a balcony area, and really in discussion with the designers, looking at a balcony, especially for middle-level productions, is that makes the space a little bit more intimate, a little bit more closer. Kids, everyone feels like they're closer to the action and serve themselves very well in that. So Scott, I don't know if you just talk about just the discussion that's happened with local options.
So we spent quite a bit of time with, what do we want to ask the community to help pay for? And I think really what it kind of came down to was we're getting great value with this school. It's a $170 million school, and we're asking for $40 million community local support. So basically what we have is the community and athletics, which is that indoor track that you saw. I don't believe the state is going to be paying for that, but there's some teachers in this room, some ex-teachers. You could definitely see a benefit with having an indoor track, especially when you have a couple of kiddos that they just need to burn off some energy, or even some teachers for that matter. The outdoor learning area, that is another piece that we talked about. So there is going to be a boardwalk that kind of goes out into the marsh area, and we're going to utilize that marshy area, which is off of the Pringle Reserve, and try and bring classroom space outside. I think that we all saw a huge benefit during COVID with outdoor classroom space, and it was a great success. The auditorium, which is what Chris was just talking about, that's going to be a big chunk of the local. There's a lot of expense when it comes to that. Chris, is there any way you can go back to the auditorium slide there? Yeah. So if you look at those panels right up there that are just above the seating area, those are acoustic style panels. And they are tremendously expensive. I think the price tag on those was somewhere around $360, somewhere around there. The state would not pay for that, but as we all know, we need some sort of acoustics in an auditorium, especially an auditorium that's going to seat close to 900 people. The stage build area, for example. I went to, there was one middle school production that I went to, Into the Woods. That was probably, 3 years ago or something like that. It was a fantastic production. And I can't even imagine how those kids and everybody else was building those sets in the space, the small little space that's right behind here. So it's just going to help facilitate with these productions, and I think it's going to be a huge benefit. There's makeup and changing areas that is associated with the auditorium. You know, it's 2023, and there may be people that are sensitive to changing in just a big music room with, 30 or 40 people or something like that. So we do have changing areas for these kiddos, and whoever needs to change. As a matter of fact, I think you were in the production of Into the Woods. Can you go back to that pie chart then? All right, thank you. Oh, look at that. I covered the build space there. Student-centered learning commons. Yeah, that was another big one. So the state will pay for so much square footage in some of these areas. We need to try and expand on some of these areas a little bit bigger. We need to go a little bit bigger because we are hosting up to 1,200 students in some of these areas. So we're asking for a little bit of extra local because we don't want to build a brand new $170 million school and it's too small in just a couple of years. The main lobby in the Commons area, I think that there was there's going to be some local funding for some of those areas. And I can't really think of, there's a bunch, but I can't really think of anything else that pertains to this slide, so I'd be more than happy to hop back up if you want. Yes, so that is actually, so what we're trying to figure out, and I think what we have figured out is that, do we ask the taxpayers, do you support an additional $9 million for an auditorium? Do you support an additional $330,000 for a boardwalk? Or do we phrase the referendum, do you support an additional 40 million local funded? I'd say 40 million, I think it's actually 38.6. So that's one thing that we have talked about and kind of kicked the can down a little bit, and I think the majority of us are recommending that we just go for a single referendum question. Do you support additional local funding of $38.6 million?
And thank you also, Scott, for leading meetings that have been on Zoom, in person, impromptu calls from my car in an afternoon saying, I just had a meeting, this is what we're dealing with right now. But thank you for your time that you definitely have put into this. So just to also, I thought it'd be good for a visual for some of these spaces. So team level common area, which is part of that local additional. This space is not paid for through the state program. So that's one of them. Looking at the team area itself. So this common area for this team to come together, that's not paid for through the state program. So if you multiply this times 12 and then multiply that team area times 4, all that square footage becomes a local option. But to give you an idea, everything that's in green, the state has agreed to pay for through this project, and that's $131 million. And if you go again to the upper levels that I just showed you, the team areas and the common areas, they won't, but everything else, all those other classroom spaces, they are actually going to cover the cost of that. Interestingly enough, though, in the auditorium, They don't do middle school auditoriums, that they will cover the stage. Because if you had a cafetorium, they would provide a stage for you. And just an example here in this auditorium, everything from the wall was a state portion of the project. Everything that goes from the wall to the back wall with that seating that comes out, that's locally funded in this building. So just give you an idea of where some of these things go. Or if you've been in the high school gym, the floor, but not the 10 feet to the wall, was covered in this project. This project also had a walking track. And if you knew that, had a walking track, and that was eliminated from the project when additional ledge was found down back when they were doing the athletic fields. That track went to blasting costs and rock removal. And it's been one of those things that has been looked on, especially by Rich Drummond and the indoor track program, as a loss for this building because in the wintertime when kids are running the hallways, it becomes dangerous, but then also there's not a place for kids to run in those locations. So getting an idea, and Scott's actually a little bit higher at 39.8. Right now, as of last Thursday, this project is slated at $171.5 million. The 131.7 has been confirmed by DOE that is their portion of this project, and then puts that local funding portion at $39.8 million. Just to give you an idea, that's roughly 80% state funded, and 77% state funded, 23% local. Another construction project that happened in Wyndham, say in 2001, was 80% roughly state funded and 20% locally funded. Wyndham High School was $27 million provided by the state, $7 million provided by the locals, which seemed like a lot of money back in 2001, 2002 when that went to referendum. Construction costs were $71 a square foot for Wyndham High School. Construction costs for the new RSU 14 middle school is $431 a square foot, which makes me wonder 20 years from now when someone else is standing here talking about a new school, are they going to say, wow, they had a bargain at $431 for what they were looking at for space. But again, similar numbers, similar ratios. Wyndham High School, when it was built, was the most expensive school to date built in the state of Maine. This middle school, when it's built, will be the most expensive build in the state of Maine, which will be then surpassed by the next projects that take place afterwards. But just to give you an idea, because this is a very conservative, based on some estimates provided by the Maine Bond Bank for interest rates, which the range of the interest rates for all the different bond years would be between 5.5% and 4%, because it actually fluctuates through the life of the bond, was roughly about 79 cents per thousand in Wyndham. This is based on current valuation. So as community valuation goes up, there's more taxable properties. Percentage actually then drops for individuals. And for Raymond, that's about 56 cents. This does account for the Wyndham High School bond, which the last local payment is in November of this year for this building. And this building, the local portion will be paid off. That's $7 million. So that includes that. That 56 cents also includes, since Raymond's a minimum receiver, Raymond is required to spend $300,000 towards the cost of receiving state subsidy, and then there's a circuit breaker. That includes that cost as well. So just to give you an idea, this is, again, what everyone wants to see. $250,000 home, $198, $350,000 home, $277 a year. On the Raymond side of the house, $140 a year, $168, $196. If you want to put this into real life terms, just doing some quick calculations today, the budget that Gorham passed last night for a Raymond resident, if you took tax impact of the new school and tax impact of last year's budget, it actually still would be less than what Gorham passed last night in their school budget. So yes, there's a tax impact. I think it's important, and I think this is also kind of gains a little understanding. You've all seen districts around us that are trying to do And MSD 51 went to a referendum and failed. Based on the cost, they're actually going to bring a referendum forward. Scarborough's bringing one forward. Gorham's going to be bringing a high school one forward. This is what it would look like without state support, trying to do this project. And so again, that $350,000 house is an increase in taxes of $1,300 a year, Raymond $763. And this is all based on 80% of students being from Wyndham and 20% of students being from Raymond. So that state funding, that state portion is a significant impact to local taxes. Yes, we definitely understand there's a local impact, and we're doing a big ask to the community for bringing forth a building. But again, looking at that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of what you can leverage, because if we don't take advantage of an opportunity with a building coming in and committee tries to do something down the road, those increases go. Had someone asked me what happens if the referendum doesn't pass? We have another opportunity to go to referendum and possibly a third. If that doesn't pass, the state's going to move on. And then we would then have to go back to some community planning as far as how we handle some of the shortcomings that are within our schools right now. So sustainability, again, masonry construction, non-wax flooring, high quality finishes. The committee, the building committee, and their names are outside when you walk out to see who they are for this building. They selected some great fit and finishes for Wyndham High School. This is a 20-year-old building. This is a 20-year-old auditorium that has had high school kids sitting in it for 20 some odd years, doing all sorts of events and other activities. It's held up really, really well. Time for a little bit of a refresh, but again, making sure that we build to those quality standards, and these are being built to standards within the state standards, and that's what we're looking at. Low energy usage. This will be a climate-controlled building that will do heating and cooling through air source heat pumps. As a board, you've done some great planning through Bill. By the time this building opens, all of your buildings will have climate control, including hopefully Manchester here in a couple weeks, and Wyndham Primary just received an update. Raymond Elementary has all of its three-phase power that's made it to the building, transformers going in this fall, and then moving up with that. This something that I've learned, this energy usage index, which is 34.9. Our buildings in the district are actually decent at 60 to 70. The national average for schools is around 100. This is energy used per square foot. Predicted energy usage on this one is 34.9. The other thing that's kind of a neat fun fact to throw out there, in any given building, in a school, 15 to 20% of the building is lost in educational space by hallways, mechanical, other spaces. This building's only 6% is lost to hallways because kids are going directly to their team areas. They're not traversing. They don't need to go places. And then that highly efficient exterior envelope, which is high energy code, highly insulated, and making sure that we have energy audits done during the commissioning of the building. And again, a healthy building, which again, kudos to Bill and all the different maintenance staff and people who've worked really, really hard using COVID money to make sure that we have the best air filtration. When we open up here in a couple weeks, I actually think Manchester will have the best air filtration based on the new units that have gone on the roof. RES will beat them next year when their units go up. And again, natural lighting and this daylight harvesting. Building is smart enough that it's bright on one side, it can actually dim the lights down. Same thing with heat. If it's warm on one side, actually can take that heat to the cooler side of the building and transfer it. So it's a smart building, being able to transfer, reducing your energy costs. Great acoustics. And if you have a healthy building, you reduce sickness, better learning environments, definitely helps with student mental health if they're in school. And then, and a lot of people want to know, reduce carbon footprint. If we can become net zero through some solar, we will have a very low footprint with this building. So board tonight, you're being asked to vote on the concept and just forwarding the concept and basically asking you to take the recommendation of the building committee which they unanimously voted to bring forward to you this concept for your consideration. And so I'll turn it over to you folks, unless there's questions. I know I've talked a lot. Jess, go ahead. Yep. Somebody lose their phone? If you notice here in those team areas, right underneath mounted, see the lockers, the cubbies, lockers? And then this center island, need a lot brighter. Scott, you had the really nice laser pointer last time. We're gonna get a good one. Yeah. So it's lockers with a work area on top. Yeah, so in those team areas, kids have a place to actually stick their things. Go ahead. How many seats in the cafeteria? You can do an entire grade level within the cafeteria. There will be sound treatment on the ceiling to reduce some of that. In addition, and this is something that many new schools have been moving towards, let me go back to, is a couple sections of the cafeteria where, let's grab this one. So you have your main cafeteria area. Here's your serving through your food lines, your kitchen. You have your gore stair here where kids can go. There's also a quiet eating area where if somebody wants to just go and have a quiet lunch and not talk to anybody, that's where actually I would be. They would be in those spots that are right there. But no offense, Chris. But that's, it's enough for a team level. You actually could probably do a little bit more in that space, but there are quiet areas provided there. Other questions? Go ahead, Char. Sure. Oh, I may have turned that off, Sean. It's the red button on the back. How about if I give you this?
I have 3 questions. You mentioned delivery to the front office. Delivery people would come to the front office. So I can understand like FedEx coming to the front office, but when the PFG 36-foot tractor trailer drives up to the yard, I don't think you want them at the front office, do you? How's that going to be handled?
When the food delivery comes, it actually is going to come in here. These are all the mechanical, so garbage, food delivery. There's a loading dock here. The lunch staff and custodial staff actually have a break room, locker room area back there. And they would need to be buzzed in by either the food staff or the custodians. And then when FedEx shows up with the packages or the daily UPS run, they're out front.
Thank you. Jamie Spalding will be very happy to hear that. You also talk about school guard glass on the lower levels, which I can totally appreciate doing that. My one question is, what happens if they need to get out rather than block somebody from getting in?
So for school guard glass, there would be heading out to the exits. We wouldn't want to be sending people out through windows. Worst case scenario, fire department, they have the big hooks and the large enough apparatus that they'd be able to push those open. One of the questions also I got last week is why not school guard glass like up in the upper levels here? And if somebody can climb up the wall and then go through the window, it would be difficult.
Last question was, and this is kind of a rhetorical question, but any time there's a project that's going to take this long in planning and build, have we thought about what's going to be out of date by the time the doors open? And what are we doing to plan for that?
Yeah, and actually, Shar, you're spot on because any building when it opens is 5 years old because it's based on the technology. There has been a subcommittee of the engineering group that has been working subcommittee of the building committee, and it's been Rolf, Chris Streifel, Bill Hansen. I've been the token educator on it. I've learned a lot about HVAC and mechanical systems, and then our folks from Allied. And the heating mechanical system is cutting edge, but not bleeding edge. It's proven technology, but it's not technology that we're gonna actually wonder why we did that. The other thing that Bill has been really pushing us is that tried and true things that he's noticed in all the buildings over all the years that he's had to fix. So a simple thing like the building has been spec'd now for 2x2 tiles versus 2x4. 2x4s all start to sag over time, 2x2s require less replacement. The mechanicals will be as up to date as possible. The technology, once referendum happens, we'll have to put together a tech committee, which will then take a look at, is it Promethean boards, is it BenQ boards, is it projectors, to go with that. Obviously, all the student laptops would transfer down. But you bring up a great question, because when this building was built, it was when computers are going from hardwired to wired. And there's hundreds of thousands of dollars of fiber optic cable in this building that really never got used because it was designed for computers to be plugged in and then wireless happened. So trying to avoid that as well. Other questions? Go ahead, Mike.
A comment and a few questions, I guess. So I became really aware this summer. I have access to educators periodically around the state. And I was kind of stunned to hear that school buildings, education buildings in Maine were like in crisis. When you look at the whole state, the infrastructure is really bad. And, and it's obviously in some places worse than others. So I would just encourage people to really consider this. If you're wondering about this opportunity, this might be quite a gift in some respects, because some places are really hurting. And people I talked to are saying this process we're going through is not set up to keep up with the need. We're going to be in trouble as a state. So that's a comment. The referendum process, there's a Raymond vote, there's a Wyndham vote. Are they separate? They're add up together? Okay, then that X's out the rest of my comments.
No, and it's issuance of RSU 14 debt, and that's why Raymond is required to pay a portion of it, because the debt belongs to the RSU, not the individual town. So same thing like when the budget vote happens, it's the whole RSU. This will happen for this particular referendum. But Mike, you're absolutely right, and it's because a number of cheaply built buildings were done in the 50s and 60s, and many are at their end of their life cycle, and in the state funding process, this round, only 9 are moving forward. We're number 5. And then after that, they're going back out for rating in 25, 26. And schools can hope that they get it on the list. But there's definitely not enough funding to support. And I think part of it's how the funding's structured.
Not applicable to this vote right now, but what is the process going to be for naming the building?
Doesn't have a name at the moment other than Wyndham Raymond Middle School. Once we get through a referendum, there's a couple things that we're going to need to figure out. One is a subcommittee for naming, coming up with a final name for this building, and a name that represents both communities to make sure that that's clearly done. In addition, we're going to need some committees that start to look at furniture, that start to look at finishes, that start to work on some of those design elements. We had a chance to tour some schools as part of this process. There's some schools like this one, this design's pretty timeless, 20 years old, but it doesn't look too dated. There were others that, boy, there were some bad colors out there. There were some buildings that we looked at that a year down the road, I think people are going to say, why did we do that? So we'll have to get those things going. And the other thing that we're going to need to have a conversation about is that we have 3 buildings that we're bringing into one. And so the leadership structure, name a principal of the building, who's going to be the assistant principals, because we're going to need to have an individual who's going to take on that role of doing the final staffing. This building is set up, if you notice, I'm going to go back to the team areas. Oh, wrong way, sorry. So let's get a better. So if you notice here, we have art and we have STEM and we have foreign language. We currently do not offer foreign language at every grade level in both buildings. So we have room for expansion in this particular space. In addition, the building is set up for expansion where space can be taken from some of these spaces and combined to make additional classrooms. And on the first floor, let me go back to it, that there's actually space, go one more, that you could turn some of these specialty areas into another team. So looking at expansion, because the last thing, and I think Kate brought this up, we don't want to open a building and then have to put portables out. So predicted capacity predicted enrollment, should we open today, would be about 1,050. The building's built for 1,200. You could go to 1,300 if you had to, with making some additional classroom wings and spaces and things. So based on enrollment study and based on work with the state. And again, I've said all these little things here, and I'll close with this about, state's paying for this, state's not paying for that. It's a gift. It is an absolute gift. And I talked to my superintendent peers who are trying to get bond questions right now, first of all, on the ballot, but then get them passed when they're looking to spend $130 to $140 million of local money without any state support, and they hear what we're going to get through this project. There's not a lot of sympathy. So it's a huge, huge gift. It's going to set up the district well. Our buildings are in great shape. Once this happens, it's going to set up our district well for the next 20 years. And then the next board, next superintendent can figure the rest of that out at that time. Go ahead, Jody.
Just a couple things I wanted to highlight for the rest of the board. Thanks, Scott, for going through the local stuff. The outdoor spaces in this design are absolutely mind-blowing. The ability for us to have a boardwalk walking out into a natural space for kids living in Maine during the day fits really well, not only with project learning, but it really just gives it a nice outdoor space. So I didn't want to miss that piece, and room for expansion in the future as well. The other piece is the greenhouse. There's a greenhouse that will facilitate, it's a 30 by 40 greenhouse. I think that's an amazing add. We have agriculture in the district led by our team at Manchester, award-winning, and I think that that's an awesome programming piece that's been integrated into this design as well. The other thing I wanted to just highlight is for energy, looking at the power agreement for the solar, the idea that we're going to have the ability to bring that electricity cost neutral potentially in the future. In the same year we're talking about it, it's 4 years out, but thinking about today, bringing in over $125,000 in electricity costs, I think that's what it is. Is that right, Chris? In one single year shouldn't be skipped over this EUI. Chris, I just had one question. That 34.9, I'm in the weeds, sorry, but does that include that bit of local only with the windows that you had mentioned, or is that the state-funded portion?
The company we've been working with, Thornton Tomasetti, when they reviewed the specs, the insulation, and looked at where are your energy issues going to be in this building, they said your windows and your doors, and your insulation. So make sure that if your other things can go, and one of the things actually that's not going to be in this building is there will not be internal cavity insulation. Think about your house, you trying to fish a wire through the wall, there's all the insulation. All the insulation is actually going to be external on the outside. Couple things that does is that, one, in any public building, internal insulation is never installed correctly because you try to pull it, but yet there's a wire in the way, you end up with a gap, and that ends up with a hole in the envelope. So you can have a continuous envelope on the outside. But they said the two places you do not want to drop down below is because you're just going to lose so much energy are your windows. And so the recommendation to go from double glazed to triple glazed. to not have operable windows, which is going to save you a huge amount in energy costs. And with a fully climate-controlled building, there isn't a reason to open the windows. And then lastly, making sure that your roof insulation is at the correct level. I haven't mentioned the penthouses here. Because the downstairs is so, what's the word I'm looking for, such efficient in its space usage, all the mechanicals are on the roof. And so these are your air source heat pumps will be here, but the mechanicals for things that take care of them are all up on the roof. Also, and Scott asked about this the other night, we had a chance to visit Morse. Morse's gym has solar tubes on it, and you don't really need any lighting because it's so bright because of the amount of sun that it reflects in. So an energy savings that's there. But Jody's right that, opportunities here for greenhouse, the community gardens out by where the main road will be, excuse me, and then in addition, some of the outdoor classroom spaces. Just also in closing, I've said it in closing twice, which is never good when you're public speaking. The cost to develop the site is around $12 to $13 million. And that has nothing to do with wetlands, because you've noticed that all the wetlands have actually been, that's just making sure that the building's brought to the proper grade, that's in building the athletic fields, that's bringing the road in, that's just actually making the site ready for construction is between 12 and 13 million. Significant cost. Okay, so unless there's any other questions, that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. So next on the agenda is item 11, middle school's concept design. May I have a motion, please?
I move to accept the recommendation of the RSU 14 Middle School Building Committee for the concept design of the new RSU 14 Middle School.
Second.
Any board discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're going to move now into one of my favorite things, and that is resolutions from the Maine School Board Association. And you all have in your possession a document that we're going to discuss. And I have a little explanation I want to read so that it's clear. The purpose of the resolutions is to provide MSBA guidance for legislative advocacy on proposed bills within the legislature. Each school district elects a representative who will vote at the delegate assembly according to the wishes of their board for each proposed resolution. Our delegate will meet with Cumberland County Region 7 board representatives on September 11th for a preliminary meeting. And you will be well prepared with our decision on these resolutions. That is a Zoom meeting, I believe. The delegate will also attend on Saturday, October 21st, the full delegate assembly where all regions meet together, where the resolutions will be voted upon. The resolutions are suggestions for the Legislative Committee of MSBA. They're not our policies per se when you're considering these. Policies are separate. They may influence legislation, which will then perhaps influence some required policies, but for our purposes, they're not really binding other than just giving our wishes toward the delegation. So I thought we'd start in your packet. There are a couple categories. Category A were resolutions that were edited with no substantive change. And they didn't provide any, I'm thinking it's a word change or a comma or a period or something. If it was major, they would have presented it to us. You can see my little cheat sheets next to each one of those. I was trying to figure out what exactly each one was talking about. If there's no objection, we don't have to do anything with these. Unless someone feels very strongly that they want more information. No one needs more information. Lovely. So we're going to go to B, resolutions proposed for deletion. So these are resolutions no longer needed and not incorporated into other resolutions during revision. And as we proceed, we're not going to be voting on these tonight. But I'm wondering if it would be helpful to get some consensus, because if we have consensus, if by some miracle we agree on all of these, then when we vote, we don't have to vote individually. We could vote just, the motion could be with the numbers, we agree, whatever. We'll see how it goes. And so you all have assignments. So we're going to start out with 2A6E. And I will have each of you read what you're assigned.
So, proposed for deletion, union security. The Maine School Boards Association urges local school boards to reject bargaining proposals on union security, which would place them in the position of requiring membership in a union, or which would require contributions in lieu of membership by non-union employees. Adopted in 1983, amended in 1999.
An oldie but a goodie. Any comment? Is there consensus that we agree for the deletion? Okay. Marking that down. 2B3C.
2B3C, teacher evaluation. The Maine School Boards Association urges local school boards to develop a comprehensive systematic teacher evaluation policy designed to measure and improve the effectiveness of instruction on a continuous basis. Feedback is critical for all teachers regardless of where they are in their career. Evaluation systems need to be based on high performance standards and supported by ongoing professional development and mentorship. The process should address all aspects of teaching performance and recognize the fulfillment of student needs and achievement of educational outcomes are of primary importance. Adopted 1979, amended 1983, 1999, 2021.
Any comment?
I just want to ask a really basic question. I apologize, I missed this one in advance. I presume, just so there's no confusion, that we do have an evaluation process that I'm familiar with.
Yes.
Is this, why is this being proposed to be deleted from their perspective?
I think it's the change in legislation that performance and evaluation systems are based on student achievement versus standards, and that was taken out of Maine law, must have been 2021, 2022, and so that's why it's being taken out.
Make sense? Any objection to this deletion? No? I'm going to mark it a yay. 4.9.
Sequestration. The Maine School Boards Association, MSBA, is opposed to the pending federal government budget sequestration action. Federal impact aid cuts would become effective during the school year. Other federally funded education programs budget cuts are scheduled to take place during 2013-2014 school year. School districts will see a reduction in the Title I grants for disadvantaged students, a reduction in special education grants, a reduction in English language acquisition grants, and a reduction in federal subsidy payments on certain school bond programs. The sequestration budget cuts to education programs would likely mean increased class size and less access to programs for children with special needs, summer school, college counselors, early childhood education, and after-school programming, adopted 2012.
Any comment? No? No. Oh, you're getting ready? Okay. Are we set for this one? Excellent. 4.1. Ken, sorry.
4.1, enhanced circuit breaker. In light of evidence that there is a correlation between the amount districts can spend on education and student achievement, the Maine School Boards Association supports the use of additional state funding for an enhanced circuit breaker program in Maine that would give tax relief to low-income homeowners while maintaining appropriate levels of local property tax support for schools. And this was adopted in 2013.
Any discussion or concern? Consensus, yes? Okay, marking it down. 4.14.
4.14 deletion, Department of Education leadership. In recognition of the important relationship between school districts and the State Department of Education, the Maine School Boards Association is calling on the Governor's Office to outline the process and qualifications it wants in a permanent commissioner and to nominate a candidate for legislative approval in the upcoming session. The absence of a permanent commissioner has left the state without an official leader to articulate education policies and direction, and has caused disruption and turnover among DOE staff, whom districts rely on for information and guidance. If the governor's office does not put forth a permanent commissioner nominee, the next legislature needs to express and advance viable options for filling this position, adopted 2016.
I don't know the history for this. Do you know the history?
It's funny, we're listening, these are all bringing back such good memories. This was actually at a time where the governor was putting forth 90-day commissioners, and then they were cycling through because a commissioner required legislative approval, so there'd be a commissioner for 90 days and then another one for another 90 days, and it was a time with some difficulty with educational policy. So that's not the case in the current administration, and there's a permanent commissioner.
Discussion, all those, yes? Okay. 4.25.
Board meeting remote participation. The Maine School Boards Association believes what we have learned about remote participation in board meetings during the coronavirus pandemic supports a law change allowing such participation absent a health emergency. The technology is available to allow robust discussion on issues and real-time face-to-face deliberations, not only with fellow board members, but with the public. MSBA supports introducing legislation in the 130th legislature that would allow such meetings under the Public Records Law if the local school board votes to adopt the practice, adopted 2020.
I'm assuming this was pandemic related. Any comment? Consensus, yes? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, wait, Section C, proposed revisions to existing resolutions.
Okay, the first one is 2.B.1.G, career and technical education opportunities. And I think this is a proposed revision with a growing demand that public schools better prepare students for work as well as college. The Maine School Boards Association supports expanded opportunities for students to participate in career and technical education, CTE classes. Early exposure to hands-on skills helps students discover interests and visualize career paths. CTE also makes traditional learning more relevant and keeps students engaged. We support efforts to make CTE classes more available, understanding it will take local coordination efforts and greater flexibility in scheduling to make it work. It also is critical that our CTE programs form alliances with local businesses to support this effort, and that the state provides adequate funding to support CTE services and programs to include transportation and equipment, adopted 2017. So, accepting the above would delete the following resolutions. 2.B.1.F, Career and Technical Education. The Maine School Boards Association, MSBA, recognizes the continued importance of providing students with meaningful learning opportunities through career and technical education, CTE. MSBA urges the Maine Department of Education through its rulemaking authority to assure the integration of CTE content within the Maine system of learning results. The MSBA further urges the DOE to provide adequate funding within the EPS funding formula and the allocation model to support CTE programs and services to include transportation and equipment, adopted 1975, amended 1976, 1982, 1999, 2007, combined in revised 2.B.1.G. Next is 3.B.3.J, CTE funding restoration. This resolution calls for the state to fund CTE using an equitable and transparent formula and to increase funding for this program important to our schools and economy. Adopted in 2019, combined in revised 2.B.1.G. 3.1.1.B, Scheduling of Career and Technical Education Programs, CTE. The Maine School Boards Association believes there is a continuing need to examine ways in which the scheduling and delivery of CTE programs can be more responsive to the needs of students, school officials, parents, guardians, and other adult citizens at the local level. We feel this goal can be achieved by the advancement of legislation that would A, provide for a greater opportunity for shared funding and decision-making responsibilities within units served by career and technical centers and regions. B, improve coordination between secondary and post-secondary CTE programs and facilities. And C, expand business internships and apprenticeships, adopted 1979, amended 1982, 2017, 2022. Combined and revised 2.B.1.G.
Very good. Any discussion? Consensus? Yes? Okay. Staff relationships.
2A, 6A, Staff Relationships. The Maine School Boards Association urges school boards to enact and publicize procedures that give voice to district employees. While boards have the final say in matters of policy, staff impacted by policy should have the means to provide input through a robust meet and consult process. School Board Policy Committee members, through administrators who attend policy committee meetings, should seek input from affected staff. Accepting the above would replace the following resolution: 2.A.6.A, Staff Relationships. The Maine School Boards Association urges school boards to set up definite policies and procedures whereby communications may be fostered between the Board of District employees. Such procedures should be publicized. School boards shall make the final decision on policy matters, but those affected by the policy should have a voice in its formulation. Adopted in 1969, amended 1999, and 2020.
Any discussion? Consensus? Thank you. Professional development.
2B3A, Professional Development. The Maine School Boards Association urges local school boards to ensure the continuing professional development needs of the education professionals with whom they share the responsibility for school improvement are met. MSBA believes in better preparation of instructional staff and encourages professional development that will exemplify the highest ideals in education through A, development of in-service programs related to the specific needs of their school systems, B, encouragement of full utilization of such programs, and C, compensation for additional credits if such additional training is in the area of competency of the individual staff, or as otherwise deemed appropriate by the school board. School board should work to ensure maximum opportunities are provided for all the staff so that year by year their effectiveness increases as educators and as leaders in the community. Attainment of the main system of learning results requires sustained devotion of time, effort, and financial resources to the continuing education of the instructional staff. Adopted in 1972, amended in 1982, 1983, and 1999. Accepting the above would delete the following resolutions. 2B3B, professional status. The Maine School Board Association urges local school boards to maintain and improve the professional status of the teaching profession and to encourage potential candidates for teaching those persons who will exemplify the highest ideals. School boards should work to provide maximum opportunities for teachers at all levels of training and experience to grow in service so that year by year their effectiveness increases as teachers and as leaders in the community. Adopted in 1963, amended in 1982, 1999, combined within 2B3A. Two B3E, professional staff development. The Maine School Boards Association urges local school boards to assess the continuing professional development needs of the education professionals with whom they share the responsibility for school improvement. It is generally recognized that the Maine learning results will only be attainable with sustained devotion of time, effort, and financial resources to the continuing education of the instructional and administrative staff. Adopted 1992, amended 1999, combined within 2B3A.
Discussion? Consensus? Yep. Teacher prep, sorry.
Yep, all set. 2B3D, teacher preparation programs. The Maine School Boards Association believes there should be ongoing review of teacher preparation programs through collaboration with colleges and universities, local school boards, the Department of Education, and MSBA, along with other groups and individuals as appropriate. The goal of the collaboration is to determine if teachers are being prepared appropriately with best practices to help all students achieve the standards within the Maine system of learning results, improving the quality of teaching and certification procedures. Additionally, MSBA recommends that approved teacher preparation programs include best practice training to help teachers assist in the identification of students who may have behavioral health, substance use or mental health, or academic issues. Adopted 2012, amended 2022. There is a need for teacher preparation in both academic standards, instructions, and identification of students who may have behavioral health or academic issues and will know where to go for referral of students. Accepting the above would delete the following resolutions. 2B3D, improvement of teaching skills. The Maine School Boards Association believes that school boards should work with teacher preparation institutions and the State Board of Education to improve the quality of teaching through improved teacher preparation and more productive certification procedures and requirements with input from the Maine Department of Education. Adopted 1982, amended 1999, 2020. 4.8. Teacher preparation programs. The Maine School Board Association recommends the convening of a special collaborative to examine the current state of approved teacher preparation programs to determine if they are appropriately preparing teachers with best practices to help all students achieve the standards within the Maine system of learning results. Additionally, MSBA recommends that approved teacher preparation programs include best practice training to help teachers assist in the identification of students who may have behavioral health, substance use of mental health, or academic issues. MSBA believes that such a collaborative should include membership from the State Board of Education, Maine Department of Education, the MSBA, Maine School Superintendents Association, Maine Principals Association, Maine Education Association, and Maine Administrators of Services for Children with Disabilities, Maine School Counselors Association, Maine Association of School Psychologists, the National Association of Social Workers, Maine chapter, as well as representation from colleges and universities. adopted 2012, amended 2022.
Discussion?
That's a long list. I just, if anyone on the team had any input as far as the number of associations that in 2022 were being recommended versus the shorter list, any insight there? And basically, I'm just comparing that the list would include colleges, universities, local school boards, DOE, and MSBA. And it removes all the school psychologists, the National Association of Social Workers, et cetera. Given the topic, it seemed odd that those were removed.
I don't think we have a 100% answer for you.
I don't feel strongly about it. It's just a historical curiosity. The ones that are listed, I'm sure, have it well in hand. It's just a question if anyone on the team knew.
We definitely take a look at it. I'm also guessing that this committee actually met, did their work, and then was disbanded. But we'll double check. May not actually be in existence any longer.
Any further consensus, yes? Okay. Get to my spot here. Okay, next up.
2B5D, School District Collaboration, previously School Choice. The Maine School Boards Association applauds the efforts of many local school boards to establish programs that allow students options to learn in a manner that is most productive to them. Therefore, MSBA encourages and supports continuation of efforts to provide multiple pathways via inter-district choices for voluntary efforts among public school units to establish and maintain regional programs for the benefit of their students. MSBA opposes mandated inter-district choice, adopted 1989, amended 1991, 1999. Accepting the above would replace the following resolutions. 2B5D, School Choice. The Maine School Boards Association applauds the efforts of many local school boards to establish programs that allow students options to learn in a manner that is most productive to them. Therefore, MSBA encourages and supports continuation of efforts to provide intra-district choices for school programs and voluntary efforts among school units to establish and maintain regional programs for the benefit of their students. MSBA opposes mandated inter-district choice, adopted 1989, amended 1991, 1999.
I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is here. Is it me?
Yeah, it doesn't sound much different.
Okay, so yes?
Question.
Yep.
Would Mr. Howell be able to provide with us what mandated inter-district choice means, just so everybody knows?
Yeah, so this actually there was a movement under school choice that kids could actually attend whatever school district they wanted regardless of a superintendent's agreement. And there's already a mechanism in the state that if a student wants to attend a district that they don't reside in, that it allows them to ask for a superintendent's agreement to allow them to go. Under this particular option that was proposed, kids could go wherever they want, and there was some question whether or not the receiving district would actually have to accept the student or be forced to accept, instead of the current process, which works and works well, which is just students go to school in the or go to school within the community they reside, and if there's other special circumstances that they can request to go elsewhere. There was just some big questions about whether or not you would have movement of students with schools that actually couldn't handle the capacity of those students coming in.
We're all set? Consensus, yes? You're just getting ready. Okay. All set.
Okay, so this is labeled New Proposed 2023. Nonpartisan school board members. The Maine School Boards Association recognizes and supports the nonpartisan practice of the election of local school board members. As determined by the school district structure statute in 1 MRSA Title 20A, school board members are elected on a general ballot without party designation, and once elected are to focus on what's in the best interest of the students and the school district. And the rationale for this resolution underscores our obligation as school board members to make decisions based on what is best for students we serve and make decisions through that lens regardless of an individual's party affiliation.
Thank you. And just to be clear, this is an entirely new proposed resolution. Any discussion? Consensus, yes? Next up.
Also new proposed 2023, parental guardian engagement in the education of their children. The Maine School Boards Association believes parents, guardians are pivotal partners in the education of their children. MSBA supports the opportunities for parents, guardians to be involved in their children's education as described and designated within federal and state laws and school district policies, handbooks, procedures, and other guidance related to parental involvement and engagement. These times for engagement include the opportunity to be heard by school district leadership, opportunities for consultations with teaching staff about what is being taught, and the opportunity to receive and review information about school budgets and spending. Parents, guardians also have the ability to opt their child or children out of programming they do not feel is appropriate for their child. These opportunities for involvement should be communicated clearly and consistently through documentation in school district policies, school websites, handbooks, and through other forms of communication which are publicly available and easily accessible. Times to raise questions of school personnel about these engagement opportunities should be offered to all parents, guardians. MSBA also believes that parental guardian opportunities for involvement in the education of their own child or children should not inhibit the education of other children. The rationale: the public education of students is most effective when parents are actively engaged. Opportunities for that engagement should be communicated to parents with appropriate parameters that accommodate school schedules and parent schedules. That communication can and should include public forums on topics of great interest, as well as one-on-one conversations when needed.
Discussion? Yep.
I was, I have to say frankly, shocked that this is in here. We've been crying for this for years now, so I'm thrilled at the same time as shocked. And would love to discuss on a future agenda about setting up roundtable public forums where we can have open discussion without an agenda. That is my statement for this evening. Thank you.
My interpretation of this in the last line is communication can and should include public forums on topics of interest. And as we have communicated and been directed by legal, that open forums need to have a specific topic for discussion because we need to advise the public what we're meeting about ahead of time and what topics we're discussing. Any further discussion?
I acknowledge both of those comments. I wonder, given the spirit of this resolution, that we might continue having conversations about garnering interest. So for example, our student meetings that we did, we had a set agenda, there were topics that we led conversations. Would it be reasonable to go to the community to ask about the topics that they might be interested in engaging the board with on a quarterly basis? Taking that feedback and then setting one of these forums based on quality of feedback, quantity of feedback, and whether there's a desire to do it. That way we would be able to evaluate, set the topics forward that we feel are appropriate, given a school build as an example. We're doing those right now. I think there was some good feedback. I wasn't able to attend those meetings with the students, but there was some good feedback that we got from those students. I think there is value in speaking with the public, and it's interesting because in the summertime, I seem to be bumping into more people asking questions. I see that in a similar way. Hey, tell me about this. And I think that can happen in an organic way if we are creative on how we garner the topics.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yep.
Yeah, well, first I was going to say, I thought it was ironic because I work in Augusta that I had to do the nonpartisan reading. But, I'm up in Augusta and I am in public hearings a lot, and they've had to go to 3-minute testimonies. And it's so frustrating for people. You think, and in that situation, you've got someone that comes down from Presque Isle and they get 3 minutes to speak. And so maybe it's not the same hardship to come to Wyndham High School and do that. But I don't think the two ideas you presented are exclusive. And I think to Poland High School, my kids went there when it opened. There was a lot of issues with just change and what was going on. And they generated a list that was a mile long. It was incredible how long that was. And I'm not saying we do this, but every Wednesday for some weeks, they took a topic on. So it was very specific. Tonight we're talking about report cards. And over time, the people started falling away. They stopped coming because they started getting at what's really happening there. So I guess I'm just agreeing that we should talk about this as being a tool that we utilize.
Future discussion for the purpose of the resolution. Are we in agreement? Oh, sorry.
It is nice to see that this is in print, because many districts, ourselves included, I think we have actually generally been very open to listening to and getting feedback from our community members and encouraging parents to talk with their teachers and meet with their teachers and find out what's going on. I think our school website does a great job at providing information and curriculum information. So I think we've been doing a pretty good job with this already to try our best to do communication, but it is nice to see this in print.
Any other discussion? Yes, consensus? Okay, good.
State funding to support students' mental and behavioral health. The Maine School Boards Association believes that additional funding needs to be allocated to school districts to support students' mental and behavioral health. The legislature needs to dedicate additional funding that can be distributed to all districts, including minimum receivers, through targeted funds within the EPS formula to support students. Action at the state level to help address wait lists, barriers to access, and the shortage of staff equipped to help address the needs is essential, as is support for the provision of resources besides personnel, including best practices and other specialized trainings. Rationale: schools saw concerns with students' mental and behavioral health made worse during the shutdown of schools due to COVID, and they still persist today. We need to address this mental and behavioral health concern, which affects how students feel about themselves and how they relate to others. We need to seek ways to provide greater resources to support students with these needs.
Discussion? Yep.
Whoever goes, I would like to get an answer to the fact that if this is approved and goes forward, when would it take effect? When, you know what I mean? When would it be in the governor's next budget?
I'm not sure that's how this works. It's a resolution, a position
know,
statement.
But I'm just
for
wondering, can they
legislation.
ask, or who asked that question? Or how do we find out when this would become effective?
I think part of what they need to do is have somebody contact one of the local legislators to have them introduce a bill for the additional funding. I think if anything, this is directing the MSMA folks and the MSBA folks to work with someone to either introduce that funding, work with the DOE to have somebody introduce it.
Good.
And to move that forward.
Okay, thanks. I'm all set, Kate.
All set? Okay. Discussion Further? No? Consensus, yes? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we got through the resolutions, and so when we vote, we'll just list each of the numbers and have one vote instead of individual, which will speed up the process. So thank you for that and your participation. We're not off the hook on this yet. Just item number 13, I'm going to throw it out. Is there anyone who is interested in being the delegate? Time-wise? No. Maybe. I didn't put the time down. I just lifted it from the MSBA newsletter. It didn't have a time, then no. I know it's Zoom. The regionals, in my experience, have generally been in the evening. The ones that I have attended, I think Jenny, you've attended one before that was in the evening. And it is via Zoom. And then the one, October 21st, I'm thinking it's also Zoom. Anyone who would like to participate? You would, Jess? Perfect. Anyone want a fighter?
I move to nominate Jessica Bridges.
All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, Jessica. RSU 14 student handbooks, motion please.
I move to approve RSU 14 student handbooks.
Second.
Board discussion. Before we get to discussion, I know many of you have submitted questions about content. And so thank you for that. We're voting on content, not necessarily format, although there's been discussions that perhaps in the future we have one general district handbook. Each school is required to have certain policies in their handbook, and it might streamline it. And for those who have kiddos in a variety of schools, it would be one-stop shopping. So I'm just throwing out there that's under consideration in the future. Any discussion at all? Yep.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that. I did read all these handbooks. They're all right here. And I'm kind of a slow processor. So I was really kind of heartened to hear Chris say that this is kind of a work in motion and that this can be a continuing, I feel like the pressure's off tonight, like, it's like, oh my God. Now I feel like, okay, I can kind of process it and come back another day and have a dumb question. So I appreciate that.
And as Chris said, some are hard copies and some are electronic. Those that are electronic are easily revised. That's the benefit of that. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to make a comment. Although there is a large generic portion to the handbooks that you've addressed as far as policies, et cetera, which aside from the errors, the minor errors in policies and the high value in streamlining that part of each handbook, there's a tremendous amount of customization and detail that's been put into these from each administrator. And I think it's fair to say, in addition to what Marge said, that reading them, you really get a flavor for how the school is run, what's important to the administrators, how they view connecting to their students. There's some terrific detail around resolutions and multiple steps. And I would just echo what Marge said. I don't think I was aware of the handbooks for the first couple of years in the district. If there's anything that we can do to increase awareness for families to read these with their kids, if they would, I think there's a lot of value in that. It's a lot of information that comes out, but I personally have really enjoyed reading that bit of customization for each school. So I just want to say thank you to the administrators, including the new team at the Wyndham Middle School, for doing those.
Perfect, thank you. Any further comment? All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Seeing none? Carries. Report of the secretary.
I move to approve the minutes of the August 9th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
Board discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Thank you. And finally,
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.